Well, now, what sort of a game breaker will the whole costings issue be? Tony Abbott retreated this week and then immediately declared victory. Here he is.
I'm very pleased to say that the Coalition has had a significant win on the briefings process. What this means is that briefings of the independents by Treasury can now go ahead without the risk of political interference. As a result of the wins that the Coalition has had today, there can now be a full and fair briefing of the independent members.
Laura, it's fair to say, isn't it, there will be problems on both sides?
There will. It was interesting to see Tony Abbott talking about trying to bring in the NBN and the ETS when you were talking to him earlier, Barry. I mean, they aren't technically election campaign issues. They've been out there, and the mining taxes are also being costed in the pre-election fiscal outlook. So he's trying to muddy the waters already. Without a doubt, there are some holes in the Coalition's costings that just were never explained properly. The fact that they were resorting to hollow logs is always the real bell clanging in your ear. So that really presents some big problems, particularly for the Coalition in terms of its debt and deficits argument. And I think it means that they really have to start, if we are talking about another election, recreating the platform with which they go to the electorate.
And the interesting thing is that Abbott's change of heart on the costings happened just about when they thought that realised that they'd won Brisbane and that they would therefore be in the hunt of forming a government that relied on only 3 of the 4 independents, not all 4 of them, which most people would think would be a very difficult thing to call a stable government. At that point, the change of heart happened, and really the arguments don't stack up. Earlier in the week, he said Treasury was incapable of costing opposition policies, even though the opposition might have become the government and then they would have been implementing them. He said Treasury would leak. He said Andrew Robb said Treasury might fiddle with the assumptions, and then the very next day they're putting their costings into the Treasury. So I mean, I might be cynical, but I think the change of heart may have had something to do with the way the seats were falling.
And considering that you actually want to be, that they will be working with these people if they form minority government, it doesn't set them off on a great foot. I mean, it was the most peculiar 48 hours, standing back watching this, that he changed his tune, Tony Abbott, a few times on why he wouldn't submit his costings, and I hope if the end result of this is that this ridiculous argument that goes on during election campaigns about costings and black holes and hollow logs and all the rest of it, if it actually brings a bit more integrity into the process, it'd be fantastic.
But I think Laura's right. I mean, the whole sensitivity was because the debt and deficit argument was built around being able to differentiate themselves on the question of deficits and surpluses. Yes. And, nobody would really begrudge an opposition a few mistakes in their costings, given that they don't have the resources of government, if they themselves weren't making such a big deal of being more virtuous, and so much more, having so much more in their budget bottom line.